kill you and everyone you know and your whole goddamn family.
Action! 3, 2, 1, go!
When I read this script by Josh Olson, I thought, well, this is mainstream, but it has some very disturbing undercurrents, and I thought if the studio was willing to go where I wanted to take it, I thought it could be really quite good.
You know, this may be a fairly normal revenge and retribution script, but he can bring something to it. It'll be something else. It'll be better.
If you really put a gun to my head, I would say in some very broad ways, this ties in thematically with his interests. It stays within that range of ideas of people being sort of pushed to extremes emotionally and notions of identity.
And some of the movies that he's done are more of a physical transformation into a different identity. This one's an internal struggle.
I think that all his stories allow us to look at things that are uncomfortable to deal with. You know, he entertains you first and foremost, but secondly, he says, consider this.
The movie opens with myself and Steve McCaddy, who plays Leland, my partner.
Billy is his cousin, or cousin, no, his nephew, actually. Leland got out of prison about a year and a half ago and went down to visit the family and hooked up with Billy and decided he should show him the world. Sort of like a tutoring thing.
I think you might well find yourself slipping a bit in the blood. You're sticky on your boots. You like your boots.
I like my boots
The boots are nice boots. So.
A lot of directors are completely prepared before they get to set. They've got storyboards and they've rehearsed everything, and they get there, and it's kind of that Hitchcock model where he almost doesn't have to show up. Everything's ready to go, and you can achieve greatness doing that. David's got a very different approach. He doesn't storyboard, and he doesn't rehearse with the actors until he gets there. And then he starts feeling it out. He'll block the scene, he'll have them walk through it and see what works for them, and then he'll start designing his shots around them.
Good guy. Go this way. We let him get away from us. You see him steal a root beer, which is his worst crime. So we're loose, and then we go down to the cart. And we follow the cart across, and that shows us that there's somebody else dead there. And probably that could be a cut right there.
It feels as though it should be definitely one until then.
That's a cut.
I had always assumed from looking at those films and how beautifully they're put together and composed and how deliberate sometimes they seem, that these don't feel like movies that were designed on the day of shooting.
I don't make decisions exactly on the fly. I have to have some general thoughts in my mind about what I'm going to do.
There you go. Yeah.
I see it once on the 27th, please.
But it's true that I improvise on the day as anybody would.
Would you like to look at it once on this lens?
Okay.
It's not because I have problems.
Yeah, no.
Lighting problems with the other lens. It's just that I think it looks better
What's
on
what?
27.
Yeah, it's nice.
I think you'll get a better
Yeah,
feel.
I agree.
on that lens.
With David's movies, some people might think of effects and blood.
Multiple stab wounds in the chest. Throat cut. Your left arm, put it back. You can see your throat better. Lots of blood on the floor. Yeah.
It's never gratuitous, just for the sake of splatter, like zombie movies or something like that. There's a reason for it. It has its place in the picture.
His preoccupations have shifted over the last few years. He's more interested with what's going on underneath the surface of the actors.
Maybe as you come by, there's something you could reach for. You find your hand and come back. I'm not sure what. Let's think about that. Yeah. Maybe you ring the bell. I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe you just do that. Give the bell. We'll bring it closer. Maybe yes, no. Which would alert the little girl, as well.
Right.
Often actors are worried about small, fussy, detailed things, which in the hysteria and the pressure of production, a director might say, well, I can't worry about that now, or it's not important, or no one will notice, or whatever.
And roll. Rolling. Play 89, take 7.
I try very hard to set the production up so that there isn't that hysteria, that I do have time and space and a crew that understands, including very much a director of photography, that these details do matter.
Action!
There's a lot of play involved in the creative act. We're grown-ups, but we are putting on funny mustaches and hats and calling each other by fake names and pretending to be somebody else. Of course, there's a lot of money, there's egos, there's reputations, there's pressure. But at the same time, you're playing, and you can't lose sight of that.
I wanted to play Billy because he's a bit of a psychopath, really. He does bad things to people.
Keep your finger to your lips, and then slowly it comes out.
In my real life, I have to be very good, so when I get the chance to be bad, I have fun doing it.
And then he shoots you. But we don't really shoot.
Hey, Brittany, how you doing? This is the fake gun I was talking about. See? There's nothing in it. Inside a little cap there.
There's something different about looking into a little girl's eyes than if someone else was standing in or if you're just looking at a piece of tape on a wall or whatever. Billy and Leland have done terrible things, but I think this is something new for him. I think he's never killed a little kid before, and I kind of wanted to know what that would feel like.
Hit it.
Hey, on your mark.
We're gonna set.
There are certain actors that I might admire on the screen, but they don't attract me in terms of saying, but I really want to work with this person. I need a kind of eccentricity or something that's just off, more typical of a character actor than a leading man, let's say, and yet still has a leading man presence and charisma.
Viggo was very deliberate and thoughtful before he chose to do this movie. I met with David a number of times. He really wanted to understand the script. He wanted to understand the ending and the transformation. And it was really about him kind of falling in love with this character before he decided to do it. And he's really kind of blanketed himself with the reality of what Tom's life and what Joey's life would be like.
In terms of the way he approaches acting, I've never met, nor has Carol Spear, my production designer, met an actor who bought things for the set, was doing set decorating.
He would go away for the weekend and he'd visit his parents or whatever, and he'd come back with little trinkets. I've been thinking about this, and I thought Tom would have this, and he brought the fishing money. And it lived right by the cash register in the diner.
On my trips there, I would get things that I knew were particular to U.S. culture, U.S. society. A lot of the symbols that we accept as normal that have to do with guns and extreme elements of hunting are very aggressive. It was interesting just finding these things in different stores and like that and looking at them. Whether Carol would use them or not didn't really matter. I would have them in my dressing room.
The set that Carol built, it was a beautiful job of art direction and construction and sort of movie magic. You get jaded, but you forget the magic of cinema, that you can actually build something. Viggo walked down the street in Millbrook, picked some garbage up at the door of his diner. We cut inside the diner. He walks in and has a dialogue scene. You can see the shops and the people and the cars outside, but the interior is all built here. It's the simplest thing I do, is to cut from an exterior in Millbrook to an interior on the stage here.
You shoot, then he's down on the floor. So you lean out like, you don't lean out, but your gun goes out like that. All right. And then you open yourself to the camera.
This was my first squibbed, dramatic, fly-through glass, cool death.
Brass plate, special rubber, small little explosive called a squib. Stick that in there. And these condoms full of blood. And put that over top of the explosive. And you take this whole thing. This goes under the shirt. Fires off, the little explosion goes, we get a hole, blood comes pouring out.
Cut. Pretty good.
Cut. Want to put the glass in?
Yes.
At first, they were going to have a double that they had lined up, and as I was just looking the way that they were setting the shot up, I mean, it's a better shot if you actually see me go through the glass and I'd have to cut around it. So I offered up my body. And also, I mean, how many times in life do you get to fly through a pane of glass?
Speed. Set. Action.
Silicone. Looks like real glass,
Uh-huh.
except it's rubber.
And what are you going to use it for?
Throwing it at the actor.
When you consider the lives that most people in the world live, they're visited by violence very often. For us, it's sort of a traumatic event that we don't necessarily expect to find in our lives, that we're very favored to be able to live that way. But the truth is that violence as a way of life is pretty common on Earth right now. So artistically, you feel it's something you have to come to terms with and hope that you'll deal with it in your creative life and not have to deal with it in your actual day-to-day life. If there's a way that you could really do a cross-the-face smash with it and have it break and get a small amount of coffee and it go flying, maybe this is something that has to be done digitally.
At speed. Action.
Cut.
You all right?
Yeah, I'm great.
I think that violence is an unfortunate but very real and unavoidable part of human existence. You can't really say that it's never justified. You can say that it's never very attractive, though.
It's not glamorizers and, slow motion and blood flying through the air.
When you've got your gun tag, say blam. Seriously. So, okay, say blam. And do a bit of a jerk.
Did that, but I didn't know how to do for your sound.
Yeah. Because we can't see it, so you can get away with that. It was about real brutality, the kind of violence that you would actually see in a street fight, for example, a kind of ungainly and not too graceful and very bloody.
Action.
Yes, her! Fuck it! Do her! I lost my knife. Go ahead, stab me. Okay. Yeah! Ah! Blam!
Have I had a rough day today?
Yeah.
What happened to me today? I got shot, and my jaw flew off, and it hung down my neck. It was gruesome. They stick it on my face for about 3 hours.
For that particular scene, I even made like a little rubber tongue for him so you can just like, shoot it out.
And then I was lying in a pool of blood.
Action. The tongue out more. Okay, and then go still. Okay, we can cut.
I don't know why he deserved that.
Part of what the movie is how the violence and the extreme violence that takes place in this town that's not used to something like that affects everybody.
When Tom kills the two guys coming to the diner, they're going to kill everybody there. No question that he's justified in his self-defense, but I also think there's no question that even without the character of Joey lurking within him, there's a huge cost to whoever does these things. What happens to you when you do that, and what happens to the people around you when you're sort of an ordinary American household?
You see Tom Stahl having this situation thrust upon him in which he reacts instinctively, so violence ensues, but he's congratulated for committing these acts of violence. In fact, he becomes, a small-town hero.
I was scared. Those men, they were gonna kill us. There was no doubt. You could see it in their eyes. And then Tom saved us. Tom's a hero.
The fact that in the United States, violence is celebrated, it tells you that as a society, we have a long way to go. And we sort of become inured to violence because it's just relentless, it's constant. So you're never really allowed to take a break and think about what just happened.
Charlie only marked.
Camera. And background.
Action.
Fucker! Fuck! Come here. Are you laughing? Are you laughing now, you motherfucking cocksucking piece of shit?
There's this sort of obvious theme in the story of duality. In Tom's character, We see his journey, but Jack also has a very specific sort of shift in character.
Action.
Come on, you punk ass bitch.
Shouldn't that be little punk ass chicken shit faggot bitch? One of the first scenes Jack has in school, there's an altercation he has with one of the bullies, Bobby Jordan. And we see Jack able to really diffuse the situation through his charm and his intellect.
The son is very smart, very sensitive kid who all of a sudden has to look at his father in a new light after what he's done. And because it's a small town, has to deal with all the kids in his school who know everything that's happened, and changes the way they perceive him and changes the way he perceives himself.
How's your dad?
I don't know. A little weird.
Well, after what he went through, I mean, actually killing someone, that's enough to freak anybody out.
Yeah, I guess.
So your old man's some kind of tough guy, huh?
You have this kid who's sort of at this pivotal age and starting to figure out who he is. And we raise our kids and tell them, you know, this is how you deal with problems and so forth. And then you see your dad pick up a gun and kill somebody. And no matter how justified it was, that's got to shake your sense of how the world works.
We had him boot him in the ball, takes him down for a sec, comes through with a backhand, which sends you. Don't go over there completely. Remember, we had it just in here and then continue. Grab them, fire into here. We had boom, spin around, big touch here. Boom, down to the ground. That's where you come up with a bloody nose. Send up into here. Slam, a real good hard slam, and then so we can have as many kicks as we want on the ground. You can have them, we can have you actually, remember we had you scurrying away?
Yeah, and then...
If you want to have them crawling away, we can even have them drag out for a second like this, and then, you know, keep onto it. We can throw a head kick in here. There's a lot of different options we have.
Yeah, I think that would probably be enough up to that point.
Yeah.
Action!
Get up! Are you laughing? Come here. Are you laughing now, you motherfucking cocksucking piece of shit?
Cut! Those hits hurt.
Very nice.
All right. Yeah.
Very nice, guys. Very nice.
Very good.
Let's go right away. Let's keep that intensity up. Very good.
Knee pads, good for when I hit the lockers. Back brace, because I get thrown back first. There's also a pad for my tailbone and a rib protector. Ashton actually kicks me in the chest, so that protects those. I've got a giant bruise on my butt too, which is where there is no padding. So there we go.
What David's liking is that it is messy, it's not sloppy.
That was messy, right?
Yeah, that last one was, so it's not looking choreographed. David, should I clear all the background out so you can line up?
Yeah, so I got to figure out what to do next. Always a problem.
David always keeps us guessing. We just kind of wait until he shows up and enlightens us with how he wants to cover a scene, shoot a scene. We just discover them as they come out of his mind.
Steady.
As an assistant director, you want to be planned, you want to be ready. So every morning, we work a little bit ahead, at least scene by scene. Sometimes it's only hour by hour, but I can keep that far ahead, and that's my main goal every day, is just that little bit ahead to keep the troops going. And he'll only spoon feed me enough information to keep us moving forward.
It was great as an actor to really be able to touch into both the charm and the genuineness as an adolescent, but then to be able to like delve into that anger and that violence that adolescence brings.
Are you laughing now,
You're kind of rooting for him. Everyone's been picked on at one point in their life and wants to just explode, and I think that's something very relatable.
This would be as close to an in-house studio movie as I would ever have done. You know, it's tempting because of the marketing abilities of the studios and the muscle that they have, and everybody knows the possible downsides. But once you've decided you will do this project, creatively, it's absolutely no different from any other film.
Do you think it could work if I said it with conviction?
If you really...
Listen, largemouth.
If you really believe it. If you really believe it.
Listen, Perty.
What day is it today, Jimmy?
It's Fish Friday today.
It's Fish Friday.
Fish Friday.
Fish Friday. Fantastic Fish Friday.
We go Fish Friday.
Fish Friday, baby.
Need you ask? Fish Friday.
What goes good with fish?
Beer?
What is Fish Fridays?
I don't know what they came out of. I don't know why. I got a couple of shirts with these bass on them. You know, I brought certain weird clothes back that people in Millbrook might wear. Other people said, oh, do you have any more? So every time I went back to visit my mom, I'd get more of these shirts. And I just kept bringing them back. But we started wearing these shirts on Friday, the first Friday, you know, Fish Friday.
Today is Fish Friday.
Okay, Chris?
Yeah.
Chris, I know you're a producer, but could you do it with some sincerity?
That's
I
tough
know
for me.
That's going to be hard.
Sincerity. Today is Fish Friday.
That's beautiful. Aces, that's the most convincing he's been for the whole shoot.
The zen-like atmosphere on set, it really does come from the top, and it really does come from the fact that he brings the same people in on most of his movies who he has very strong relationships with. And that attitude really does allow everyone to work at their peak.
Fish Friday. And Vigo made it. And this is his sick edition, The Blood. Yep. It's no big deal, Dad.
It is a big deal. His family is talking about suing us. Assault charges, I don't know what. We can't afford that, Jack. We don't have that kind of money.
Oh, what? Mom's not gonna take the case?
Listen, smart mouth. In this family, we don't solve our problems by hitting people.
No, in this family, we shoot them!
You escalate it, which allows him to escalate. If you don't escalate, then it goes. Good.
One of the wonderful things now and then that just amazes me working with David is just this kind of really nice sense of family that I see with, you know, we have Carlo, who's a grip, who used to work on all of David's films 20 years ago. Scotty, Ella, the gaffer, same thing, 20 years ago. We all worked together. It's a wonderful thing. He's just loyal to all of his people, and we work like a family, and it's a really nice situation.
When you work with the same group, you can't fall back on anything you've done before. It's a constant growing process, and it's creative in the sense of, like, let's try something different. Let's do, you know, you can't do the same thing or fall back on what you know. You're constantly trying to do something better.
You feel some eyes on him. He looks and he sees Fogarty, Ed Harris, watching him right there. He peels out.
Compositional process is a little outpouring of ideas each day about how you feel about certain things. So coming to the set starts that process. Seeing some of the footage starts the process. Even seeing Vigo in his Tom Stahl wardrobe starts that process. The work that I've done with David over the 20 years and 10 films, everything I've learned about movies is kind of in those films. Like, you can see my growth in all of that work.
This is one of the perks of directorship, is you get to test drive some of your picture codes.
David is a very nice, normal guy. And then you see some of these movies and you're like, well, where the hell does that come from? I want to know what David does when he goes into his trailer at lunch and in between takes. You know, it's kind of a big mystery. I've heard things like sleep. Maybe that's where the weirdness comes out in the trailer. Maybe there's some sort of weird ritual that goes on in there.
Everyone is so afraid of him or thinks that he's a strange man, but he's not. Usually we shoot a film every 2 years. But I have a little loophole that people don't have, is that I'm his private barber. So other people only see him every 2 years. I get to see him every month.
Everybody loves her because it's really you. So I've got a petition, and all the women on the crew have
I
signed.
can't believe this. Is my wife's name here?
Keep going, keep going.
All right.
There's 2 pages here.
Okay.
Anyway, it's something for you to keep and think
You don't like
about.
those sort of serious kind of...
For yesterday's scene.
You like those?
Or-
We've done that scene.
Or this.
David,
Beautiful
can I get
shot.
you to direct these wildlines?
The value of working with a crew that you've worked with many times before is you have a history of nonviolence. I've had suggestions that I've incorporated in the films from just about every member of the crew. You totally have to leave your ego at the door when you're a director.
In honor of the last Fish Friday, enjoy your fish. It's your
Ladies, smile! Thank you.
Family work.
I'm sorry. Do you think we know each other?
You tell me.
My character feels that he was done a severe injustice some years ago, and he's coming out to set things right. Eye for an eye, as far as he's concerned.
This man is not just casually noticing that perhaps this is somebody from his own past. He has a vendetta, and he has to be scary, he has to be real, and he has to suggest a whole past without verbalizing it. How long does it take to put the scar on?
It's an hour and a quarter.
An hour and a quarter.
There's a lot of life underneath what's going on here for my character in terms of the past and the history. And he's in the position of power because he knows the truth. And so he carries that with him. That position of power, if you will, is an enjoyable place to operate from because you got the guy on the spot, big time.
We all lie to ourselves and the people around us. You know, some in very small ways, some in very large ways. I mean, Tom is telling some huge lies, but what's fascinating about his character is that they've become true. He doesn't even recognize these guys.
And he takes it off for a purpose. His purpose is...
My fucking eye, dumbass.
It's not just a scar and a milky eye that's going to make a character be scary. Just Ed's body language and the way he uses his voice. And he has disdain for Tom Stahl's wife because she doesn't know what she's involved in, and yet she's very feisty and angry with him, and he expresses it with a kind of scary humor. And it scares her, and it should scare the audience as well.
He really pushed me in a really exciting way. We were doing this scene in the mall one day, and it was my first scene with him.
Nothing to worry about, Mrs. Stahl. I've been watching over her.
You stay the fuck away from my family, son of a bitch.
There is no need to use that kind of language, Mrs. Stahl.
You know, we're doing the scene, we're kind of working it out, and I was kind of all over the place, and it's my close-up, and he's sitting on the bench, and he looks up at me, staying in his character. He goes, "I don't believe a word you're saying." Mr. Fogarty, if you...
Can I tell you something before you go on here?
Yeah.
I'm trying to help you out here. You understand me? I'm trying to make you understand something. You're living with somebody who's not who he says he is.
I hear what you're saying.
No, you don't.
I hear what you're saying.
No, you don't.
And instead of getting defensive and going, "What do you mean?" I stayed in my character and I just gave him my next line. If I see you within 500 feet of me or my children or my husband, I'll have you arrested. Can I possibly make myself any clearer than that?
No, Mrs. Stahl. You...
Good, good, good.
Hey, Mrs. Stahl. Don't forget your shoes.
So he was kind of directing me within the scene, and the scene became something really dynamic because he wasn't afraid to call me out on something. And, you know, I thanked him so much for showing up for me. When Fogarty comes to our house and has our son with him, I'm like a mother lioness. I just want to kill the guy. I'll do anything to protect my son.
Jack! Mom! Don't make us hurt the kid, Joe.
Listen to me. I will get Jack. Please. Go up to Sarah. Do it now.
Cut. And cut.
I feel like that work was really convincing.
The way we came out?
No. When you told me to leave.
Get tickets. And you got great seats. Better not looking.
You look scary. I mean,
Okay.
Cute, scary.
It really becomes a family conflict then. From the moment that Jack sees Tom, my father, interact with Fogarty and his men, I think he just really puts into question, you know, who is my father and what is his past? You know, what is his history?
And I run upstairs after he lets our son go, and I look out the window. And I not only see my husband kill a guy, I see him devastate a guy. So brutally that I know in that instant, I don't know who this person is. I mean, it's really disgusting what he does to this man.
That looked real, didn't it? Watch if I can be that far away.
Oh, ooh, hurt.
The Charlie thing, basically they're gonna have to shoot like in the 3 stages of makeup.
Yeah.
One with no prosthetic into the first hit, like a little bit of blood through the nose.
Yeah, so just if it is as though this ripped here.
Okay.
Action. Cut. Play that back, please. Well, that looked good, that first one.
Second one is the prosthetic that I showed you the photograph like that.
Yeah.
And then the third one is the really crushed one with the green nose.
Yeah.
I have the prosthetic makeup's done, and I have the green face with the mashed up nose in the middle.
Set.
The green screen head will be shot in front of a green screen backing. To make it simple, because the best way is always to keep it simple, is with a syringe, with pressure in the syringe, we're blowing that through a blood system in the back, which goes to 4 selected holes that Stefan had chosen where the blood will spray out from, as if the bone in his nose had broken right up through to his skull.
On a David Cronenberg movie, you know, it's not going to be just any other movie. It's what we call cinéma d'auteur, you know, and he's definitely an auteur.
He has to move, take a step towards the car door as though
I
he
know
thinks
David makes his films his way and that he's autonomous to a certain extent. It really makes a difference when you're working with somebody who's calling their own shots, who's responsible for the final cut, et cetera, you know.
Action!
You won't need your toothbrush. We'll take care of it.
Not that you can't come up with stuff, not that he doesn't listen to new ideas, no, not that he's not a collaborator, but ultimately it's his film and everybody understands that. It doesn't matter if I agree or not with his take on it. I know he's got a point of view about it. And if David hadn't been directing the movie and they asked me to be in it, I probably would have said no.
The difficulty in this film was trying to get things that I liked, that I felt were suited for the character, but at the same time, that I could get multiples of. It's really hard because you can't just pick something because you think that artistically it's right. You have to pick it because you can get 6 of everything, which you generally get if there's shooting.
We shoot him 6 times tomorrow, which is these 6 right here.
And this is Ed you're talking
This is
about?
Ed Harris, yeah. It's Fogarty. And hopefully all of this stuff will be enough to shoot the poor man 12 times. And then Frank, on Tuesday, gets shot twice, I think. And then over here is Charlie. Charlie gets whacked in the nose like this, apparently, and spews large quantities of blood out of his mouth. So Denise is getting 2 or 3 more of these, because it's a lovely blood color. So he dies, he dies, he dies, he dies. Everybody dies on between tomorrow and Tuesday.
I'm kind of glad you killed those guys.
You don't want 17.
I had to drive all the way up from Philly with those 2 guys.
I can imagine. So you don't mind?
Well, 3 against 1, you did pretty good. You got 2 of them.
You shoot better since you lost that eye. You should thank me.
Yeah, probably.
Vigo and Ed actually worked out a backstory, which was something that was never necessary for anyone else to know, but they knew what their history was. And it had to do with when Joey came to Fogarty's house and his wife was upstairs and, you know, and there was violence and then she came downstairs. You know, they had it all worked out in great detail.
Hey, this is an empty gun, guys.
Thank you.
Okay?
Where they go?
It's full of emptiness.
Supposed to be sensitive, right? So they're
It's kind of a perverse twist on it, the classic wrong man scenario. You know, we play it completely straight throughout. There's that pivotal moment, I should have killed you in Philly. And it's like, oh, now you know. It's like, oh, wow, this is our guy. And I think that's something David really likes to do, is to screw with our sense of who a character is and what they're about.
You got anything to say before I kill you, you miserable prick?
Should have killed you back in Philly.
Go right away, please, guys. Right away.
Working with such a talented cast for my first feature film,
Gun is hot, folks.
I really tried to just soak it up and watch them. I've come down to the set a few times when I wasn't working just so I could watch some of their takes and study their craft. In doing so, I'm also constantly pinching myself because I'm standing across, the set from Ed Harris.
Is everyone ready? Cameras ready? Good. Gary, go hot. 3, 2, 1, fight!
How'd it feel, Ashton?
That's awfully good.
Is there any value to that?
I got a story. I got a story to tell some people.
Thank you all for welcoming me and being so nice. I appreciate it very much. Have a great rest of the shoot.
Yes, Bart.
Tell me the truth.
The easiest thing to do with this movie is play more with the is he or is he not this guy, and that the overriding kind of surfacey tension of the movie, but the character stuff, the meat of the movie is really what's going on with Tom and what's going on with Edie as they struggle through their relationship.
I like this idea of, and tell me what you think about this at the end when I go over there. I'm just having those thoughts now. Oh my God, my whole life is a sham.
Yeah.
You know, David's scripts are really lean because he is interested in the actors filling things out.
In a sense, they are the custodians of their own characters. They protect those characters. They want to make them integrated and whole. And you as a director really should listen to that. You really should not move them around like pawns on a chessboard. You should allow them to be alive and to collaborate with you.
And you know, from this point on, I feel like I can, you know, barely stand up, basically, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know, so here, more, you know, here, but not just, I think I don't have it together, and that's why I go there, right? Let me be honest, when I first read the script, I thought, supportive wife. And then I read it again, and I started to find some things in her that she was more of the man in this family than Tom was. Then when it changes, she kind of is forced back into this feminine, receptive, vulnerable place. And as soon as I found that shift, I started to look at it differently. This killer that Fogarty warned me about. I walk in and it's the first time I confront him. And when I actually hear the words that he's not this person, it's like a physical thing takes over my being and I just run to the bathroom and puke.
Maria had a really nice idea of going into the bathroom just for a second and then coming back out. And we don't need much, obviously.
How much time do you have? Because that comes up.
Quite enough.
Yeah. Peter's so slow that you got hours.
That was a bit of a surprise because it was not in the script. We had an extra door on the set, but which was mainly for crew access, so that they wouldn't be stuck with one door to get into a set. So all of a sudden, she's running out the door, and unfortunately, it's the sound man or something.
He's not really slow, but he can tell you how long it takes.
We were running around frantically looking for extra flats, and luckily we had a couple of extra sinks and toilets, which we were able to get into the set on time. But it was instant set. And with David, you don't just build a corner of the set. You like to give him the whole thing because you don't know what's going to happen.
It's very interesting in a scene like that not to play into the other actor's energy, not to make it about Tom, but to keep in your own character's energy because it's really traumatic. What are you? Some kind of multiple personality schizoid.
There's an anger there, but it's not just an anger with the person who in some way has deceived you or disappointed you. You're also angry at yourself for falling for it.
Jack's name? Sarah's name? Stahl? Tom Stahl? Did you just make that up?
Let's clear the lights for now, guys, until we find the shot.
We very rarely talk about visualization because we both like to discover that as we get close to the movie and see the different elements that go in front of the camera.
27. You might even manage it without taking the board out.
If I'd come up with a formula, say, oh, let's put the camera off level, it would no longer have an effect after a couple of minutes.
Oh, you know what? This is different. It holds very, very nicely.
So I think we rely on what's going on under the surface of the story to give that off-kilter feeling rather than an obvious formula in the imagery.
Okay. We shot most of this movie on a 27mm lens, which is quite wide, and is not a normal lens that you would use for close-ups, but I think over 90% of the film was shot with this lens, and it's just trying to find a coherent, cohesive visual equivalent to the psychology of the characters and the dynamics of the rooms and how people occupy their spaces and so on.
One way to do this, I suppose, would have been to look at everything that's Tom as Tom, and then everything that's Joey is Joey. But what I think is more interesting is to blend them, and then you sort of waver back and forth, especially in stressful moments or as things start to break down. It's just to see some bleed through.
I spent the next few years becoming Tom Stahl. And Edie, you gotta know this. I was not really born until I met you.
It is not a lie that I did fall in love with Edie, that I still love her, that we had kids that I love. that we named together. None of that is a lie. I now believe that completely.
I needed him to be convincing as both halves of a role that requires an almost a schizophrenia, that you can be several different people that appear at different times. We create an identity. In other words, it's not something that's there completely genetically. There's a lot of will and intelligence and creativity that goes into creating an identity for ourselves.
I can't believe this is happening.
The set.
Action!
Thanks.
Edie. Edie! Get off of me! Fuck you, Joey!
There's a lot of love between Tom and Edie, especially in the beginning, sort of happy, healthy, wholesome stuff. And people are like, well, has David done that kind of thing? And I go, well, you know, look at The Fly, and you look at the fact that he can, you know, put Gina Davis in a room with that giant rubber fly and make you feel that profound emotion that you don't get a lot of times when it's two actors in a room. You know, this is a guy who can handle just two married people being in love with each other.
Have a good one.
Me too. It's not like every day they're making out, but they make an effort. You know, they make an effort. So I end up picking him up from work that night and taking him on a special date.
Two of the things that I added to the script that were not there when I first read it are two sex scenes.
Holy cow.
I thought that Josh was being a little bit, well, he's not prudish, but he was being a little too delicate. And I thought that the sex lives of your characters are important.
Okay,
And to shy away from it can limit the depth of exploration of their characters.
Yeah.
This is what I really do it for.
I need some direction.
I am the real director. I mean, this is none of that bullshit American stuff. I get right in there with my actors, and I take the same risks.
He's an auteur.
I take the risks that everyone, you know, dreams about.
So the cheerleader sex scene, Josh did right with my urging.
No wives in here, mister.
And then the parallel, the sort of contrasting, actually, Edie having sex with Tom and Edie having sex with Joey, what we call the gangster sex scene. I thought it was important that we see her responding to both of those, and certainly in the second one, realizing that there's another depth to her own sexuality, which she found disturbing, but also attractive.
We had never experienced each other's dark side, even sexually. We never explored that, an animal thing in both of us. So seeing his kind of animal brings out mine.
Yeah.
You want that really big in his face.
It turns into something both of us don't expect.
Fuck you, Joey.
And again, you know, is based in pure love. So there's some sort of trust there.
It's not going to break, is it?
No, it won't break. It might wobble a bit, but it won't break.
Robert's fine.
You have this violent sex scene on the stairway, on the bare wooden stairs. I mean, you're obviously looking at the same two people. David allows us to see in ourselves a duality, seemingly totally contradicting sides of ourselves.
Action!
Wait! Wait! Fuck you, Joey!
You don't have to act out violently, but to know that that's within you and within us all is, I think, healthy.
So it was really intense actually doing the scene that day. We were incredibly nervous, but I think we found a real arc to it and a real understanding of it. I hope that plays.
Do we continue and try to work some stuff out there?
Yeah, we should try to see if we can run the whole thing.
And figure
out exactly what we're gonna do and how long it's gonna take.
Should we just do that on camera and just figure out where we go until we come and then I leave?
I think pretty much. I mean, the way the script is written, it works really nice, and it's just a question of the old movie thing where multiple orgasms in 14 seconds because you don't want to wait for the 4 hours.
So you're going to be pretending to do your pant, or how's that going to work? Or you're going to figure it out as we go on?
Fumble, I don't know either, but I mean, I don't mind if it's.
Sexuality on the set is special. You can't just say it's like dialogue. It's not. Actors are much more vulnerable. Their own approach to sexuality is suddenly summoned up. And then that's very personal and private, and it becomes kind of open season you have a crew standing around. That's where an actor needs to feel that he or she is protected by the director. They have to trust you, not only on the set, but in the editing process, that you understand what they're giving you and that you will not misuse that.
You prefer when Maria does that,
Straight to this,
or
here?
or that?
Here.
Yeah.
Boom.
Let's do final touches.
Ô noble tweet.
Sois forte, sois vite.
Nage pas le
Va vers ton inévitable destin.
Celui d'être dévoré.
Dévoré par une grosse tabarnak.
C'est ça.
Montre-moi donc ton visage.
Rhonda, second team.
Et puis, là derrière.
Non, ça se voit pas.
Ça se voit pas? Parce que la caméra était juste là.
Je sais pas. Do we see... Hey, David? Are you just seeing this up in this shot?
OK.
More flush.
When I did the film Crash, which was very dark and extremely sexual, more so than History of Violence, the monitor was available to any actor at any time. As simple as seeing what you looked like naked from that angle, that's one of the moments of trust is, well, you know, tell me if you really think you don't look good and you don't want to look that way, then let me know, you know, because I'm showing it to you right now. You will know what material I'm taking back to the editing room to work with. Had your moment of realization that, hey, I shouldn't be doing this. You really pulled away from her.
Okay.
Quite far, and that gave her a chance to grab
pull
you and
herself
pull
up
you
to me.
really back.
Yeah.
If you stay close to her, there can't be that big movement.
So I need to be like...
Yeah, yeah.
Right down and then she's...
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Ready, Russ? Good. All right, folks, let's do it. Stand by. Let's lock it up. Keep it quiet.
Yeah.
I just want to have good things to say.
All right, you guys want to take your positions? Here we go.
You know, it's not about him taking me against my will. At one point, we're fighting, and he looks at me, and he's like he realizes what he's doing. And I grab his head, and I'm basically saying, like, no. I don't say it, but I'm like, you started this, go. Now I want, you know, okay, let me have that. And I like it. I like fucking Joey. And that's where she begins to unravel and realize there's a whole other aspect of herself she's never explored.
Oh, I felt that one.
I felt it too.
The wounded. You're the walking wounded.
Viggo did everything possible to make sure that when they were doing their first scenes together, they were already a bit of a couple. I don't mean literally off screen, but they had spent time together. They were getting to be friends.
From the first minute I met Viggo, just felt like we were brother and sister, like we'd known each other forever.
The more comfortable you are with each other in a personal way, the more your characters can bring things out of each other in a dramatic way. It's quite an interesting process.
Very good.
And marker.
Set.
In Josh's original script, Richie was not Joey's brother. He was a friend. And I said, no, I really think Richie should be Joey's brother. I think there's a whole other layer of illusion and metaphor and psychological intensity by having them be brothers.
Richie is presented very strong. I've never done any character anywhere near close to that. Certainly not to in a film with a large audience.
William said to me he thinks he has a few afterburners he's never fired up before. And I said, well, I'm going to ask you to fire them up for this role.
How do you fuck that up?
It changes with me how you enter into a different character physically. My preference is to transform physically entirely.
Because then you have the Mephisto filling in affectation. Yes. Because he's all affect. Yes. It's all. He's just better.
It's a relatively small role in terms of screen time. And in fact, William was really only on the set for 5 days to play this role. But it's absolutely a critical role. It has to be compelling, it has to be convincing, it has to be charismatic, it has to be scary. And I just knew that he would do wonderful things with the dialogue.
Can you believe that place is still standing? The track and turf? Can you bang Joe Levy there? Richie started for me with the accent. And I worked on this accent with a guy named John Nellis.
William Hurt is very, very detailed, and he's one of the few actors who knows the International Phonetic Alphabet that I can say, this is a schwa sound here, or you're substituting this sound with that sound, and he knows what I'm talking about, and he marks his script that way, and we work through it that way.
And it's very difficult to get it because about, you know, it's not it's not New York. New York is like that, but in Philadelphia, you really do pronounce your R's.
He would like to go way over and then pull it back and come back so that those sounds are really comfortable.
I'm so mad at you. Why didn't you write to me? You know, we're brothers. What'd you think was going to happen?
It was after that.
Business.
Yeah. So that's what.
Just that.
Yeah. But we're just going to do, we'll just do this, and we're going to do two sizes. So.
And how do you want to work it on that last line? Because I made it. It's wonderful how sound changes you. Because if you can relax, which in a very professional atmosphere you can do, you can let your body be informed by the sound. So your body changes its tilt and its lilt, and he may get a little more body English into it. Don't see the upside. You see the upside, Joey?
Yeah, Richie, I do.
Vigo's accent changes as his character changes, and those are things that we took a lot of time with and spent a lot of energy on.
I told Maria, I said, I was down in Philadelphia. You're from there, aren't you? She goes, yeah. She goes, you were there? You should have called my Uncle Pete. I'm like, well, yeah, if I knew your Uncle Pete. She goes, no, but if you go back. I said, well, I'm thinking of trying to squeeze in one more quick visit.
So I call my brother from Philly and my uncle who owns a funeral parlor in South Philadelphia.
Hello. Yes, Marie. This is your Uncle Pete. I don't know. I'm in a car here with the Lord of the King's King.
Then he has 8 hours of tapes of my brother and my uncle and him driving around Philadelphia. Hilarious.
He ended up hearing members of Maria's family acting out scenes in the movie for him.
Can you believe that place is still standing? The track and turf?
That's where I went to meet the guy.
Don't you bang Jill Levy there, right on the bar in front of everybody. I never banged Jill Levy.
Didn't you? Didn't you bang her?
Yeah, didn't you bang Jill Levy there, right on the bar in front of everybody? I never banged Jill Levy. You should have. She was something. Been a long, long time, bro. Yeah.
Uncle Pete never went for the Brohim thing. I gotta say that right now.
Been a long, long time, Brohim.
He says that's a soup bone thing. Soup bone being the Irish.
I'm going to cast my ballot for the USA election.
I voted absentee. I already sent it in. But I should vote here as well, shouldn't I?
Okay, voting station.
This is Marcus Streeper. He's here from... Pardon? Streeper. I'm sorry, sir. He's here from... Austria? Austria, and he's here to monitor on behalf of the UN.
That's it. Terrorist beware, UN bomb-sniffing dog Rosie. Is that Rosie?
Rosie.
Okay, she looks pretty scary. Okay, I'm doing that.
Now you'll enter from the right-hand side, Canadian side, please.
Yeah, that's the Canadian side. I did my duty and I voted as a Canadian. I voted in the American election.
We'll tabulate them at the end of the day. Because I was going to do this movie, and I knew instinctively, and it's only been confirmed more and more each day, that this had something really serious to do with U.S. culture, U.S. society. That sort of expansionist, aggressive, willing yourself to do things, which can be both admirable, but also can be really pig-headed and destructive. But in even Tom, there's obviously something really destructive to what he's doing, to this lie, what it's doing to his family. But on the other hand, there's something really positive. And he's doing something that's very difficult to do. And that is, in spite of his experience with extreme violence as a young man, he is willing himself to not be violent. William was sort of testing me and interested in the fact that since 20 years had passed, there's a maturity to Joey, so that the first couple of questions...
Didn't you bang Joe Levy there, right on the bar in front of everybody?
He knows I never did that. And he knows I know he did that, probably.
Vigo immediately took time off from a tremendously busy schedule, and we started working right away. Right off the bat, I launched into the Cain-Abel parallel, the brother versus brother issue. And one of the first notions I had was that Richie longs for his brother to be his brother again.
Cut. Very gorgeous. That's brothers.
It's so interesting the lengths that Joey goes to create another life.
You want anything?
Richie can't comprehend that any more than some people's parents can understand their children's choices. So you like that farm life? Milking cows and shit?
To him, it's a joke, but it's not a joke to me. And it's only very reluctantly that Joey is drawn back into behaving violently again.
The story obviously reverses the Cain-Abel fable, since now it ends up that Richie pays the price. And Joey, being the younger brother,
Jesus, Joey,
manages to escape.
The day we shot this with William on the set, Stefan put a actual bullet hole in his head with prosthetic. What we did was got behind him with an air rig filled with blood, and the actor just had to lean back against this thing.
Jesus, Joey.
And cued by a dialogue, we hit the button which opened the solenoids and blew the back of his head off.
William, if you have to blink, just blink.
Okay, thanks.
Head up, sir.
You watch David review the tape in the monitor, and it's uncanny.
Action! Blood!
Because his concentration is absolute. He's looking at that thing, and he's not affected by anyone or anything that's happening on that set. Not anything.
Cut!
The thing that actors really want is to know that they are being observed. They need to know that you, as a director, are watching them.
A long time ago, I got over myself enough as an actor that I know it's not going to be perfect, and let me just see what I can improve on. You know, whether it's to watch dailies or on the spot, you can improve something by seeing the previous take on a monitor.
You know what I could do is after kicking...
And be low.
Well, it's nice.
Yeah, it would be good if you could
Well, I could be
contrive to, twist.
I think the fact that I've been involved in stunt work and movies over the years was probably helpful to David. He had in Stoney a very good stunt coordinator, someone who's very easy to work
It's
with.
not really a good angle for the fall.
No, you're probably going to want to go to the edge there.
Yeah, so...
But I think the fact that I understood what the coordinator was talking about, because I'd experienced some of it before, made David's job a little easier because he could just sort of watch and react. He didn't have to find a way to invent all of it.
Sound effects were good.
It's not that I enjoy the violence, but I enjoy it as a craft making it look right, just like any other scene. To me, a scene where there's fighting is no different than a scene where there's sex, or where there's talking, or where there's cooking. I mean, It's a way of making it look as real as possible.
I start to look up, and it's
And he doesn't use the same old angles that you've always seen in action sequences. He uses David Cronenberg angles. That made it challenging for us, though, and for the stunt coordinator, because there's a reason why you see the same kinds of angles in fights in movies over and over, because those are easier to do. You know, you can safely look like you're punching someone or doing damage to somebody without really coming even close to them. But the angles that David wanted to shoot a lot of times made it very hard to make the fight or the blow or whatever look real unless you were really close to the person's face or whatever. So it made it a little harder.
So don't kick so quickly?
Yeah.
It's kind of nice of the timing, though. I know what you mean. Do
Yeah,
one
no,
with that.
yeah. I like this.
Well, it
timing,
gives him
and
a
I'll
chance
print
to
it.
beat. He's trying to keep the garrote on me too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, do one just a fraction longer. Is that what you mean? Right?
Yeah, before the kick. Yeah,
Good.
That's,
Nice
that's starting to
sell.
work. Yeah. Just print that.
Good,
one.
Ian.
Yeah. Very good. He'll get a Stuntman's Association belt buckle out of this.
Nice.
Yeah, Richie would not have a Ruger. It's just not classic enough. But he would have a titanium coated Walther. I could really see Richie going for that because you're right. It is a much sexier pistol. So that suits Richie. We'll have that in his drawer.
Very good. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And that was that?
That was gonna be that. Yeah.
Would have been funny.
I'm hot.
Action!
We did a shot where William Hurt shoot one of his henchmen that's laying on the ground.
Fuck that up.
And then you shoot him.
And that was a tricky shot. Now, you couldn't use a blank because the man was too close, and we didn't want to use the electronic gun. If you have a tight shot of it, it doesn't look quite the same as the real gun. So we had to use the real gun.
The squib is coming this way.
Yes, I will.
So yeah, you can wear a shield.
Yes. Thanks.
Okay. Effect, guys. Put a little effect there, and this pops up as he fires the gun.
How do you fuck that up?
We use a semi-automatic pistol, and we use a special primer that looks like bullets going out of the gun. And that's what happened. We shot him in the chest, and the effect was perfect.
The results are in. The winner with 75 votes, John Kerry. A mere 6 votes went to George W. Bush. Rosie, the UN bomb-sniffing dog, got 2. In a surprise, Jill Levy got a vote. And another big surprise, I don't know if it's gonna go over well, Guy Lafleur got a vote.
Recount!
Marker.
Action!
Set.
I kept remembering the title, and the title very important. It's called A History of Violence. And I think the question is being asked whether violence is innate to us and whether a history of violence can become another history. Can you give up one entire persona and create an authentic new self?
Do we ever really know anyone? Do we ever really know ourselves? Fully? I don't know. I think it's just a continual process.
The whole movie is about pasts coming into the present, and it's also about family. Who is he when he comes back? Is he Tom? Is he Joey? Is he Joey Tom? At least for his wife, and at least for his children, who now know who he is. Certainly his son, who's old enough to really have seen him become Joey.
It leaves a lot of question as to whether or not he is a good guy or a bad guy. My response as Jack is he's just nervous and confused by all of it and scared for, what's going to happen because it's been a very tumultuous past few days for the family.
Nothing is ever the way that we think it is or think it ought to be. There's always a dimension that's hidden, whether it's in ourselves, in another person. There's always this underlying something that we can't control and we don't really understand.
It's not hopeless. There's always hope. He did come back to the house. Whatever you want to think happens, that's up to you.
It's a very interesting, sort of ambiguous ending, and I think that's one of the scenes that made me want to do this movie.
I think some people will think it's a very happy ending. I think some people will think it's very depressing. I think some people will think it's a little scary. The ending, to me, was very, very dark, and I wanted to suggest at least the possibility that something good could come of it. The thing that I thought was very funny is when we finally went into production, when we had the shooting script, everything had just paced out just right so that you turn to the last page of the script, and there's one line on it that says, "There's hope." And that's it. That's the last page of the script. You can tear it out, and there's not hope, I guess.
You need another one. One more, Walter. Just one more.
All right, one more, guys. Russell needs another.
Speed.
Mark,
Marker.
we're set.
That's a wrap on the fish, everyone. Yay! Thank you so much for a great film, a great show. That's a wrap. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you, Carolyn. You're gonna cut those parts out, right?